What is the next civil rights issue? As many have seen, there has been a large prominent theme of civil rights going on in the media and in popular culture. I have a question to any viewers. What is the next civil rights issue in the future? From Black Lives Matter to Antifa, what more could people want? And who is the person or groups wanting to create said issues? At one point, I had been seriously convinced that people wanted to normalize pedophilia. And at this time, much of the media, liberals and even some conservatives, have criticized a certain provocateur for uncouth comments made in regards to pedophilia. Similarly, and in the past, Salon had published similar themes pertaining towards this issue in an article. I remembered myself stumbling across this article, and I'd become so struck of how sad the day would be if society were to start normalizing pedophiles. But what is interesting, though, is that the criticism of this provocateur, Milo Yiannopoulos, will temporarily thwart any increase in the normalization of pedophilia. As something I had read, giving up the queen on the chessboard will maybe perhaps ultimately save the game, though I don't know if this will be the case. I'm not going to argue in this video of how pedophilia is repugnant, as I believe, along with many others, to be axiomatic. But why do I say temporarily is that I do not believe this ire towards Milo or really any pedophile at this point will last forever. Culture and the mainstream have become increasingly liberalized, taking liberty to what I think to be much of its radical form. In much of the belief of it does not harm anyone, therefore it is good philosophy, and going back to what I had said when I had read this article, many people responding to it were convinced if said pedophile did not harm any children, then his frame of mind and his perversion was okay. What people had failed to ask, I believe, was this question: does this person find underage children sexually attractive? If the answer was yes, this would fall into a mental illness. If no, then it simply wouldn't. I believe this just to be a simple consequence of liberalization, but also of normalization of mental illness. I live in a country in which the message of stop the stigma is a recurring theme, especially during events that try to address mental health issues. And although I don't believe this to be a problem per se, I find this, for some reason, and perhaps I need help with formulating this, but I find this just to be the logical progression. Lest the structure of any remaining societal decorum be taken away under the guise of progress. So I ask again, what is the next civil rights issue? I find pedophilia is still be very much on the table, as the tendrils that lead up to this issue are still functioning. And I cannot ponder racial issues, though that could be a possibility, but we already have Black Lives Matter and things of that regard. I don't believe it to be gender, as we've sort of already addressed this, and I believe much of that community to consider themselves in a winning situation. It could be perhaps income, on the basis of any sort of economical downturn heading, then perhaps that will create some sort of backlash. And I was thinking about this, and perhaps veganism, at least a radical form of veganism, in its attempt to essentially label a majority of the world as murderers because of the consumption of meat products. What could possibly be next?
What could be next?
Because in my mind, with the increase in the normalization of mental illness, I see this only as a consequence of time. I encourage anyone to leave a comment, perhaps help me shed some light on this. This is my first video, so I'll take any advice given. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to doing this again.